consciously curious, but also the owner of foxyastrology.com. Some of you may have listened to my Curiously Conscious podcast in the past with my partner in crime, Corey Hawkins. Um, and Corey has had a lot of changes in her life. And so she didn't want to continue on with Curiously Conscious, but I did. And with her blessing, I am recording my first uh, Curiously Conscious alone, unfortunately, because I would love to have her here. But for those of you who have followed Foxy Astrology on Instagram and Facebook, or maybe have been a part of some of my private groups that I have run on Patreon, some other things, or maybe you've asked or coached with me in the past, I still do those things. I'm not doing the Patreon group right now. I kind of needed to take a sabbatical, and part of that has to do with one of the things we're going to talk about today, which is Pluto. And he is getting ready this week. I'm actually recording this on the 19th of March, which is my baby brother's 50th birthday. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I'm filming this on the 19th, recording this, I should say, on the 19th. And uh, we have the equinox tomorrow on the 20th. We have the new moon in Aries at 0 degrees on the 21st. On the 23rd, we have Pluto making his ingress into Aquarius, where he will stay until about the 11th of June. He will only get up to 22 degrees or 22 minutes, pardon me. He gets up to 0 degrees in 22 minutes. So he's just getting in there just a little bit. And then, of course, he'll come back into Capricorn for the rest of pretty much the rest of the year. And then next year, he will be making his way into Aquarius for the next 20 years. 20 years. So Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I did want to talk a little bit about Curiously Conscious. So originally, I started doing podcasts about asteroids and dwarf planets as Foxy Astrology many, many years ago. And I just wanted to do something with my best bud, Corey. And so we changed it to Curiously Conscious, and we just kind of had conversations about the moon cycles and kind of what was happening in our lives, what was going on in the universe. Kind of blossomed out of the pandemic and wanting to kind of do some things in regards to that. So I really love the idea of Curiously Conscious because I think there are so many people that are waking up right now, and there are so many people that are conscious, and there's so many who are just, curiously conscious, sort of like Pluto dipping his toe into Aquarius. So for those that are a little curious about consciousness and what that all means, that's really what this program's about. And so I'm going to be interviewing different people who have helped me through my ascension process, which is ongoing. And it really started about 20 years ago. Yesterday, the 18th, was my cancer-free anniversary, 20 years cancer-free. And when I met Corey, Corey and I met at Brenneke Massage School in Seattle, Washington. And Brenneke doesn't exist anymore, but it was a wonderful place. And for those of you who know what Brenneke is, you know what I was talking about. But Brenneke brought together just so many wonderful people, and it was a great massage school. Then, of course, thank you, Pluto, with all the corporatization and all of the stuff going on with Pluto moving through Capricorn. Brenneke was sold to a corporation, I want to say out of Australia or something. Anyway, they basically screwed that school up, I think, personally. But anyway, there were a lot of us who went into massage therapy, and I think a lot of us went into it as we were going through our awakening process. There's so much that you learn when you're working within the body's matrix, about frequency, about the response of the muscles. I was just watching something the other day where they were talking about the consciousness of muscles and how it's actually measurable now. I'm just like, whoa. Which brings me back to the idea of metonic cycles. So metonic cycles, if you're not familiar with what those are, it's every 18 and a half, 19 years, the eclipses happen at the same degree in the same sign. And so you will have these reminiscent uh, instances happening at those times. So about 20 years ago, Corey and I were in massage school. We started our own massage business called Solstice Healing Arts. And then I got sick and we decided we were going to move closer to family and all this stuff happened. And so we ended up having to bring Solstice Healing Arts to an end. So I walked out that time. And then we started this business about 18 years later, the Curiously Conscious conversations that we were having. And then, lots of stuff happened in Corey's life. She had some big things happen in her life. And so she had to kind of walk out of the podcast. So this is the metonic cycle. When you have similar frequencies, similar energies happening, but it's a different time. You've had time to evolve. You've had time to mature. You've had different things happen in your life. So, I've been experiencing all of these really kind of amazing, metonic cycle types of endings and beginnings. So that's been kind of interesting for sure. But being cancer free for 20 years, it's no small feat. I got diagnosed with ovarian cancer back in 2002, and right before Pluto made his way into my sun sign of Capricorn. And I'm an early Capricorn, 6 degrees of Capricorn. So my birthday's in December. And my Venus is exactly at 29 degrees and 59 minutes of Sagittarius. So Pluto was like, sitting on my Venus for quite a long time in my first house. And during that time he was doing that, I was going through this cancer period of time in my life, which was very scary for me. I was newly married. I was only like 29 years old. It was a very scary time for me. So I made a lot of decisions during that time period that were kind of unlike what people would expect of me. I made a lot of choices that were not to do chemo and radiation. I worked with a naturopath, an acupuncturist, an oncologist. I started working with a medicine healer, a shaman, spiritual healer. I was doing a lot of different things. And really, what was happening for me during the time was I was going through an awakening. And Venus is about the things that you love and value. And so a lot of the things that I kind of had based my life on were starting to change. And it's kind of like, when Pluto's involved, it's let go or be dragged, right? So I was getting dragged a lot, but it also forced me to kind of claim my power. And that's one of the things that's great about Pluto. Pluto is really, it's transformation, it's empowerment. It can be a lot of really positive things, but it also means that you're going to have to make big changes, big sweeping changes oftentimes. And they're painful ones because you're clinging to what you know. And so a lot of disillusionment happens because a lot of the things you thought were the right thing or the correct thing or the ways that you were raised, you realize those things, they're not. And you're your own person outside of your family and your relationships. And you kind of just have to make, when you're in a situation where might die, you start to make decisions for yourself. And I think it empowered me to just say, I don't care what everyone else says. This is what I want to do. It's my body. It's my choice. If I don't want to receive this type of treatment and I want to look at other things, that's what I'm going to do. And a lot of really miraculous things happened to me during that time period. So as I look back 20 years later, um, you know, there are so many people in my life that are still in my life that I'm really grateful for. And I know they all thought I was off my rocker at many points during that experience, but they still supported me. And, I think when you look at the world we live in today, where people just are canceling people, they don't agree with something or what have you. And I realized, gosh, there were people who canceled me back then because they thought I was nuts. They thought, well, why isn't she listening to these people? They're physicians and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't feel right to me. So I'm going to do what's right for me. and I gambled and I won. So, I could have, you know, been gone 20 years ago, but I'm not. I'm still here. So, and the other thing that happened to me when I went through um, this time period in my life, when Pluto was conjunct my Venus and heading towards my sun, was somebody had gotten me a astrological reading with a pretty famous astrologer in the Seattle area. And I went to her house and she just blew me away. And she was talking about the fact that I was going through multiple years of very impactful Pluto transits. At the time, that didn't mean much to me because I didn't really know much about astrology. I knew my sun sign like most people. But by the time I walked out of her house, I was blown away by the information she had, what she could divine from just looking at my chart, what she could tell me about what possible um, my possible options were that were coming up for me. It was really shocking and surprising. So that is also part of this metonic cycle that I've been experiencing too. And about you know, I remember like not too long after I had my reading with her, I said, I really want to learn about astrology. She was like, it's really challenging, it's da da da. She did everything she could to discourage me. And after like 4 years of kind of saying that to her every year when I did, like normally every year on my birthday, I would do a reading with her just to kind of get a reset for the year. I finally was like, I'm just going to do it. And then I just did. So, and then I really started studying. I started studying with some other astrologers. I started taking a lot of classes. And then I just was like, you know what, put my shingle out. And I started Foxy Astrology, mainly in my kitchen, at my kitchen table. And most of the time I wasn't charging anything. And then when I first started charging people, I was charging like $25, which was like, you know, just really for my time and my coffee that I was offering them in my kitchen. And then I decided to make it into a business. So I Foxy Astrology turned 5 last August, and then I just kind of hit a wall. And so Pluto had made it all the way past my sun, and for the last about 4 years, he's been basically bitch slapping my Mercury and my Pallas Athena. So I needed to take a sabbatical. I needed to take some time off. I've been working really hard, doing a lot, writing a lot, working with a lot of clients, one-on-one coaching, uh, you know, doing, so many readings every week. And I needed to step away. I need to take a break. So when Corey decided to no longer do the podcast anymore, it's like, you know what, this might be a good time for me just to take a break. So I did. And it's been about a year. And now that Pluto is getting ready to move off of my Mercury, he's still technically conjunct my Mercury because my Mercury is at 26 degrees. And he's at 29 degrees right now. But he is getting ready to move into Aquarius. And so even though he's only going to be in there till the 11th of May, and then he's going to come back out again, I feel so much better. One of the things that happened to me during this transit was I lost my voice, literally lost my voice. Some days I couldn't even talk. And, I had a real scratchy voice, and I would lose my voice if I talked very much at all. So I've gone through a lot of challenges and changes with that. And things have gotten better. Um, but it's been, you know, um, challenging. I had to have a PET scan last year. They thought I had something in my lung. Really, just basically got long-term COVID, and it just hosed my voice box basically. But it's better now. And I just needed some time to like sleep in and explore some other interests and do some things that weren't just focused and astrologically related. Not to say that I didn't do some things, because I did. I love astrology. I could eat, breathe, and sleep it every day if I wanted to. I have a tendency towards obsessive compulsiveness sometimes, so that's definitely a passion for me. And really, because I think it's like the handbook that you don't know that you came with. And when you find out that you came with a handbook, you want to kind of read it and get to know it so you can really operate this machine that you're, this vehicle that you're driving through life in properly. And I think that's really what it's about. So, when people get all weirded out, say it's evil or it's bad, that's just, to me, that's just ignorance. You know, uh, Astrology's been around for thousands and thousands of years. And if we look back at history, anytime something empowered people or gave people information, they tried to find a way to monetize it. And if they couldn't monetize it, then they would try to make it, you know, illicit or devalue it by making it evil or saying it was, find some, some book that had a verse that said, you shouldn't do this, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But, even the Holy Roman Emperor used to have an astrologer. I mean, there used to be an astrologer in every king in the world, every queen had an astrologer. So a lot of presidents, a lot of people who run their countries these days also have an astrologer. And I think most people who really want to understand more about themselves, which I think is the true knowledge, that's true empowerment, is to understand the energies that you're experiencing, what areas of life you're experiencing those in. And then it gives you the opportunity to make choices that are better informed. If you know that you've got a lot of really great aspects and energy happening in your 10th house, then it may be time to really focus on your careers and not be so focused on maybe building a family or getting married or what have you. If you have a lot of stuff going on in your first house, it might be time to really look at the relationship you have with yourself. Look at your early life. You know, go through those things and start to really focus on it. There are different times of your life. Everything's cyclical. There's different times of your life. Some of those things that we go through, the midlife crisis, menopause, all these things, they're cyclical. Everything in life is cyclical. And understanding how those cycles are impacting you and what areas of life those are impacting you, all it can do is empower you, which is so Plutonian, so Plutonian. So let's talk about a couple of things that are happening coming up here. So we've got the equinox on March 20th, which is tomorrow. It's happening at 5:25 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, the equinox is the beginning of the astrological year. That is when the sun comes into Aries, and at 0 degrees and 0 minutes of Aries, we have started a new astrological calendar year. So there's no surprise that I'm recording my first official Curiously Conscious by myself at this time, right? Uh, so we talked a little bit about Capricorn entering into, or pardon me, Pluto entering into Capricorn in 2008. So, that brought with it a lot of economic insecurity, a lot of intense politicization. We've been going through it's growing, growing. I mean, we see what's going on in the world. We see what's happening with banks. We see we had the bailout in 2008. Now here we are again in a similar situation where we're having issues. Of course, it's a different time, different things are going on. But basically, our government is no longer working. We just had the Pluto return for the United States of America. We're just moving past that now. It always takes. This was the year that it. This is the year that it. You know, it exacted. I want to say. I think it was in 2022 it exacted, but anyway, we're at the beginning of 2023, and now it's not going to exact again, which things are moving on, but we're like at critical degrees of Capricorn now. And so again, this is the let it go or be dragged kind of scenario when you have 0 degrees of any sign or 29 degrees of any sign. If it's 0 degrees, if you're coming in, with that novice here to learn, and as you're going out, you're getting harder lessons because you're mastering something, Capricorn. So we're trying to master something, and of course 27 degrees, I think I want to say 22 23 minutes of Capricorn is where the United States Pluto is. So we haven't had a Pluto return in our country. Our country's not that old, but if you look at other countries that have had multiple Pluto returns, like Britain, France, these types of things, you will see that if you go back 250 years, about every 250 years, there's some big upset, there's some big revolution, there's some big challenge or change as a result of that. So we're experiencing that now. And, it can be really scary. I think when you get on, uh, social media or you watch television or something, and it's just like, it's like Glum from the Lilliputians, if you know who that is. And it's like, oh, we're all gonna die. But you know what? This has happened before. It will happen again. And this is just the first time that we remember going through it. So let's talk a little bit about Pluto. And, I always think of Pluto as like agony and ecstasy. Pluto can be absolutely horrible, and it can also be absolutely amazing. Pluto is power, but he's also many other things. I sometimes think of him as the three Ds, right? He's death, destruction, and decay. But when you get death, you get rebirth. When you get destruction, you get to be rebuild something better or in a different way. When you get decay, you can go in and repair it. I mean, anybody who has ever gone to Europe and you see like at Oxford College for Oxford University, and they have like the new college. It was built like in 1838 or something. That's new, but to them it is because their country's been around for a really long time. They've had lots of Pluto returns, so you can look that up. But if you think about the three Ds, so you've got the death, the destruction, the decay. There's always something that comes after that, right? So going through the death, destruction, and decay part can be challenging, but it can, like I said, it can be agony or ecstasy. And I think a lot of this plays off of where it's happening in your chart. Also, a lot of it plays off of where, how the other things are going around in your life. And, you know, Pluto also, Pluto technically rules the eighth house. He co-rules it with Mars. Mars uh, is the ancient ruler of Scorpio, but Scorpio rules the eighth house. But it also rules the eighth house of your chart. So your chart is predicated on what time you were born, what your birth date is, the time, day, and location of your birth. So the eighth house for me is not Scorpio, for example, but for somebody else it might be Scorpio, and that's a really strong house because Scorpio rules the eighth house anyway. But the eighth house represents sex, reincarnation, recycling, regeneration, rejuvenation. There's a lot of re's in there. That often reminds me of Mercury because Mercury is all about regeneration. Renew, recycle, reuse, that kind of stuff. Very Mercury. But life, death, and rebirth, those are cycles. Those are cycles we all go through. And whether you believe in reincarnation or not, it's okay because reincarnation believes in you. Um, we've all been through this before. We've all been around the wheel before, and which your notes can tell you that. But that's another conversation. But so life, death, and rebirth. So you have to experience all of those things to get back on the wheel and start over again. If you look and see where Pluto is in your chart, that's a great place to know where he is in your chart natally because it gives you a lot of power. So one of the things I've been experiencing in my chart is I have Pluto conjuncting my Mercury and my Pallas Athena, which I had mentioned before. So Mercury is how you think, how you perceive, how you communicate, um, how you understand. But then I also have Pallas Athena. Pallas Athena is kind of about strategy and negotiation skills, right? So, but I have Pluto at 27 degrees of Virgo, which is another Earth sign. So all the Earth signs trine each other. Trining is like a harmonious energy. It's going to be a blue line. If you pull a chart, you see the blue lines and red lines. The red lines are challenges. The blue lines are harmony. So, I have Pluto trining Pluto in my 10th house, which is Virgo. So in my work career life, and I have him conjuncting my Mercury, my Pallas Athena. I've had a lot of interesting things going on in work. I've literally pulled down Foxy astrology, and now I'm bringing Foxy astrology back in a different way. I'm reconstructing how I want to do things. And part of that was because I really didn't like the platforms that I was working on. It was really challenging. It got to the point where uh, you know, if I didn't advertise with them, then I didn't get any movement at all. Nobody got my content, even if they subscribed to me. Um, then as soon as I stopped posting stuff, all of a sudden they were shooting my stuff out everywhere, right? Because they were trying to get me back. That manipulation, just in the algorithm and manipulating the algorithm all the time, just totally made me livid. Having to keep up all the time trying to figure out what their new algorithm was, that just made me insane. I was like, you know what? There's got to be a better way to do this. And until I figure that out, I'm just going to go hibernate for a little while. I still haven't figured it out for sure. Um, but that's one of the reasons why I've decided to start posting on YouTube and doing some other things. And, I'm not real comfortable being seen. I'm a middle child and I'm kind of like the kid that never gets photographed, right? And I'm good with that. I don't like to have my picture taken. And one of the reasons why I did Foxy Astrology the way I did it was my little fox was like my avatar. I could do and say whatever I wanted to. It could be whoever I wanted to. Just dress up my little fox anyway I wanted to. And that was very comfortable for me. So being seen, putting myself out there and being seen isn't something that really appeals to me. Although I've been told that by more than one psychic, by the way, that's what I should be doing. So here goes. Here goes. We're gonna try it. We're gonna try it. So let's talk a little bit about some other things that are happening. Um, and then next time, I'm not sure who my guest is going to be yet. I have so many wonderful people that I've talked to, and I said, "Hey, would you be willing to be a guest on my Curiously Conscious podcast?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure." And I was like, "Wow." So a lot of these people that I'm going to be bringing on the podcast are really, to me, just super fascinating, and I love them all so much. They've all had a hand in my ascension process at different stages of it. And some are older than me, some are younger than me, some are my age, some are related to me. I mean, it's really it kind of runs the gamut. But I think as we all continue to go through this ascension process, a lot of people are waking up right now, which I always think is really fascinating when you see all these really young people who just discover astrology and then they think that they're the first people to ever discover astrology. I love you so much. But it's just so cute because it's like, astrology's been around for a really long time. I might be in Montessori school of astrology, and I know enough to be dangerous. But you get those kids on there, and they're just like, oh, and this is that, and this is that. And you're like, yeah, I was there and did that once. But one of the first things you learn about astrology is that you can never stop learning about astrology. There's always something new to learn. There's always somebody who knows more than you. There's always somebody who is wrong. And you really have to figure it out for yourself. It's great to have people, mentors. It's great to learn things from people, but you really need to be able to get down into the weeds and figure it out for yourself. And every astrologer is different. Every person is really an astrologer. As soon as you figure out that there's that handbook and you can open it and look in and figure stuff out. Wow, let me tell you, it's like the first time you see snow, you're like, this is like a miracle, right? It's a miracle. So keep on all you young people to astrology and some that aren't so young that are discovering astrology. It's really amazing opportunity to learn yourself, to understand yourself, to know yourself, which is true wisdom, right? True wisdom. So a couple other things, and then next time I will have a surprise guest because I don't know who it is yet. But the 21st of March, like I mentioned, we have that Aries new moon that's happening 0 degrees and 0 minutes. And then when we have the first eclipse that's happening in, I want to say April 25th, so like a month from now, that is going to be at 29 degrees, I believe 29 degrees of, that's going to be happening the 19th, if you're on the West Coast, the 20th of April, if you're on the East Coast. It's going to be happening. It's the solar eclipse, so it's the beginning of eclipse season. So we'll have two eclipses, April, May, and then we'll have two eclipses, I believe, October, November. But this will be when we have our first switch over because the nodes of the moon are going to be moving out of Scorpio and Taurus, moving into Aries and uh, Libra. And so because of that, the eclipses are going to start to move. And so this will be our first Aries eclipse. All of the eclipses last year were in Scorpio and Taurus. So if you have anything in Scorpio or Taurus, or if you are a Scorpio, Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Ascendant, you've really been getting it, right? You've been getting it a lot for the last, 15 months. So 18 months, the nodes change. So we're getting ready for that change to happen. But the first eclipse that we're going to have is going to be at 29 degrees of Aries. So it's really interesting that we're going to have these two lunations in Aries, one at the 0 degree, one at the 29th degree, both critical degrees. It's going to be really interesting. So, and at this time as well, you've got to remember we've also got Pluto, who is, at um, who's in Aquarius. And so that is also going to be very interesting. He's going to be at 0 degrees exactly of Aquarius at on the 29th or the 19th, 20th of April. So during this eclipse. So he's going to be at the Aries point. So the Aries point is 0 degrees of any cardinal sign, but the true Aries point is 0 degrees of Aries. And that's just because the cardinal signs. So the cardinal signs are Aries, Libra, Capricorn, and Cancer, and they are across from each other. So you've got Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn. So they create a cross, like an X, an X or a cross in the sky. It's called a cardinal cross. They're cardinal signs. They make things happen because they're the beginning of things. You have the equinox, which happens in March. That's the beginning of Aries, 0 degrees. That's where Pluto's going to be during this lunation that I mentioned. And then you've got the summer solstice, you've got the winter solstice, you've got the fall equinox. They're all at these points. So you've got Aries, Libra, the equinoxes, you've got Cancer and Capricorn, which are the solstices. So these are the beginning of something, right? So now we've got a moon happening, you know, this week at 0 degrees of Aries, right around the equinox. Very powerful time. Very powerful time. If you have anything around the very last degrees of Pisces or the very beginning degrees of Aries, if your sun, your moon, your ascendant is around these, it's a very powerful time for you. Very, very powerful things could be happening, big changes. So same thing. So during the equinox, that's happening. But then when you move to the solar eclipse, that's happening 19th, 20th of April, 29 degrees. 50 minutes of Aries. That's the very last of the signs. This is mastery. So things are going to be happening very quickly. And again, if you have anything at the very beginning of Taurus or at the very end of Aries, in those, probably 5 degrees either way, you're really going to feel this, particularly ascendant sun, um, moon, but also other things, right? And then don't forget, we've got Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius here, right? He's going to be, um, he's going to be sitting there at the fixed signs. So if you have anything around the first 5 degrees of the fixed signs, so we're talking Aquarius, um, Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio, especially Sun, Moon, Ascendant, you're really going to be feeling Pluto at this four corners, right? Now, the fixed signs are stable signs. So Pluto coming into a stable sign is really going to be like a bull in a china shop, right? These stable signs, they like fixity, and they're great for building things. So when you have Pluto, it may feel like everything is going to be lost, but it's going to allow you to build something really stable. So think about that rebirth, the decay, the rebuilding, that kind of stuff. It's not going to feel warm and fuzzy probably, but it's going to happen. And you can either go with it or, like I said, let go or be dragged. So, there's options. And that's why I say Pluto particularly, as we go through this year of transition of Pluto, because he's going to go back in Capricorn for a little while, and then he's going to go into Aquarius for 20 years. 20 years, long time, longer than he was in Capricorn. I'm thinking by the time I'm 73, which is when Pluto will be leaving Aquarius after 20 years. I'm thinking that, we will be telepathic only. We will be teleporting to wherever we want to go. We might even be able to transport our consciousness into a different vehicle. Maybe we can choose, another body and transfer our consciousness and continue to live a longer life. Who knows what's going to happen with Pluto and Aquarius? Aquarius is the scientist, it is the humanitarian, it is the future. It is ruled by Aquarius and Saturn. So yeah, interesting times for sure. I think anything could happen. The thing again I will say about Pluto though is, you know, he's like when you see the two people in the picture that they take at the amusement park where they've got one person on the ride and their hands are up and they're smiling, they're screaming, they're having a great time. The other person's like white knuckled. And I mean, that is Pluto. That's a perfect shot of Pluto for me. You're going to have somebody having the exact same experience who's just really living it, loving it, and going through it, right? Getting in that frequency and riding the wave. And then you've got the other person who's going to resist it the whole way. It's going to give you skid marks the whole way. So, good luck on this journey that we're all in together. Some people are going to be the people that are white knuckled screaming and saying, oh my God, we're all going to die, like Glum from the Lilliputians. But the reality is, we're not all going to die. The reality is, there's going to be tremendous change, tremendous opportunity, and let go and be dragged. Yeah. And if you let go, you might fall, but you might fly. So I'll leave you with that. So I'm Jennifer Fox. I hope that you've enjoyed Curiously Conscious. I hope you'll come back. I'm going to try to make sure that I get these podcasts out every couple of weeks. We're going to go with the lunation. So we'll be back before the full moon um, in April, and I will hopefully see and hear from you then. If you want to drop me a line, you can drop me a line at curiouslyconscious111@gmail.com. Or you can go to foxyastrology.com if you're interested in a reading or if you need to contact me directly. Take care.